stitch electronic sewing machine. Congratulations! You've made a wise choice in selecting your Kenmore 100 stitch. It will bring you year after year of dependable service. You know you can trust the Kenmore name, and with the help of this video, your printed instruction manual, and a little practice, you'll be taking on even advanced sewing projects without a worry. This video is divided into 4 sections. The introduction, which you're watching, the basics that will get you started, how to do common stitches, and then how to do more advanced stitches. As you can see, each section is color coordinated, has a title page, and a number. With these cues, you should find each section quickly. And because VCR counters will vary, you may even want to zero the counter on your VCR and make a note as to when each section appears on the tape. This way you can refer quickly to a particular section. Now, take a minute to acquaint yourself with the Kenmore 100 stitch. One of the benefits of the unit is that there are so few pieces. There's the machine itself, your foot control with the power cord, and your accessory storage box. You can store your accessories simply by keeping them in the machine. It keeps things together nicely. Here are some of the key parts of the machine that we'll be referring to. Thread tension dial, thread cutter, hand wheel, push-pull clutch, light and power switch, plug connector, the nameplate, the free arm, and your presser foot lever. In your accessory storage box, you'll find these items: the presser foot storage compartment with feet, bobbins, the lint brush, large and small screwdrivers, the buttonhole opener, spool pin felts, a darning plate, a needle set, and a twin needle. Remember, you can also get specific information quickly from the enclosed printed manual. And beyond that, advice on the operation and care of your machine is always available at your nearest Sears retail or Brand Central store. Now, let's get started on the basics. You begin the sewing process by turning on the machine and threading it. The first step in threading is to wind the bobbin. You wind the bobbin because to make a stitch, the machine needs 2 sources of thread. One from the actual thread spool and another from this bobbin. Pull up the spool pins and put a felt over each one. Then put the spool of thread onto the spool pin with the thread winding this way. Take off the bobbin cover plate and take out the bobbin like this. This knob is called the clutch. Pull it out. Pulling it out stops the needle from moving while winding the bobbin. Pull the thread around the bobbin thread guide like this. Now place the end of the thread through the bobbin so that it comes out the top, like this. Once you've done that, put it on the bobbin winding spindle. Push the bobbin winding spindle to the right until it clicks. Now hold on to the end of the thread and press down on the foot control. Wind on just enough thread so that the first wrap is secured. Clip the thread end and slowly start the machine again, and wind the thread until the bobbin stops. You'll notice that the indicator reads SP to show that the machine is winding the bobbin. It slows down and stops automatically even though you have your foot on the control. Now push this spindle to the left, clip the thread, and remove the bobbin. 10 will appear in the stitch indicator display. Finally, push in the clutch to get it back to its normal sewing position. Now put the bobbin back in the bobbin holder and make sure you feed the thread counterclockwise. Then pull out about 4 inches of thread towards you through this tension slot. Then pull the thread clockwise toward the back of the machine through this second slot. Finally, put the bobbin cover plate back on, leaving about 4 inches sticking out, like this. If you forget the exact threading path for the bobbin, just swing this cover plate open and there's a diagram right here. Over here, there are arrows to guide you along the threading path. Preparing your top thread is the last step before you're off and sewing. Raise the take-up lever to its highest position by turning the hand wheel toward yourself. Raise the presser foot lever, put the thread on the spool pin with the thread thread coming from the back of the spool. Now watch the threading path. Slip it through this thread guide and follow the arrows. Down, around, and up, and then through the top of the take-up lever, down and through the two thread guides. Thread the needle from front to back. You may want to cut the end of the thread with sharp scissors or wet the thread to make it go through the needle eye easier. Then hold the end of the thread from the top spool with your left hand. Press this up-down needle position pad twice. 1, down, 2, up. Now bring a loop of the bobbin thread up, that's the bottom thread, by pulling the top thread like this. Pull both threads under and to the back of the presser foot, leaving clear 4 to 6 inches of thread. And now you're ready to sew. In the next section, we'll learn some common stitches that will help you through most of your basic sewing projects.
Mom, can you take out my jeans?
All the girls are wearing these patches. You just have to sew them on.
Honey, there's a rip in that favorite golf shirt of mine. And if you could...
So play. Don't you remember the vampire piece I need for the play?
And they're really simple to make. You only have to make 10 of them for the bazaar and you'll have enough.
It's my gown, Mommy. The dog in your scarf would be really cold without it.
Sewing used to be a mountain of chores. But no longer with the Kenmore electronic 100 stitch. Now it's easy to do most common sewing tasks simply by knowing a few stitches. In the same way we walked through the threading of your machine, now we'll learn 3 primary stitches: the straight stitch, the zigzag stitch, and a mending stitch. The most common and versatile of your stitches is the straight stitch. You can use the straight stitch for a regular seam as well as pin tucking, quilting, zippers, top stitching, darning, mending, basting, and gathering. The Kenmore 100 stitch makes the straight stitch very easy. When you turn on the machine, it automatically sets to sew a straight stitch, pattern 10. After you've threaded the machine, begin your straight stitch by raising the presser foot like this. Put the fabric under the pressure foot with the edge of the fabric next to a stitching guideline. See them on the needle plate? Lower the presser foot and press the foot control. Hold the fabric loosely and gently guide it along the line so that it feeds naturally. At the end of the seam, you may want to reverse by touching this reverse stitch pad for 3 or 4 stitches to lock in the seam. And then when you're done, cut the threads with the convenient cutter. The zigzag stitch is one of the most common and most versatile stitches on your machine. It can be a utility stitch for sewing buttons, buttonholes, hemming, overcasting, mending, and darning. It can also be used to decorate with trims, appliques, and cutout work, or as a decorative stitch. There's more than one type of zigzag stitch. Consult the charts in your printed owner's manual for the zigzag stitch that best suits your sewing project. Our demonstration will be for the basic zigzag stitch. The zigzag is so common that the Kenmore 100 stitch has a special direct entry pad for it, so you don't have to enter the number. The basic zigzag stitch is number 14, so we touch this pad. You'll notice the little A and C on the pad. This tells you what presser foot to use. There are different types of presser feet for different types of stitches. For your zigzag stitch, be sure to use a zigzag foot. For our demonstration, we'll use the A foot. Now pull back the threads and line up the fabric on the guide. Check the thread tension, it should be set around 4. Then lower the presser foot, press the foot control, and away you go. When you've completed your zigzag section, touch your reverse stitch pad to secure your seam. You can see that selecting stitches on the Kenmore 100 stitch is a lot like programming a microwave oven or making a selection from a vending machine. The panel features not only stitch selections, but also variations on the particular stitch that you're working on. For instance, this pad controls the width of zigzag stitches, and for this stitch, it's preset at 5 millimeters. But if you want to change the width, just touch the plus for a wider or the minus for a narrower width. This pad sets the stitch length for both straight and zigzag stitches. Again, it's preset, but if you want to change the length, just continue to touch the plus for longer or the minus for shorter stitches. The buttonhole section is here. You can see that it offers 3 types of buttonholes. Further down, you see the variety of special decorative stitches and monograms. Now, let's go back to the top of the panel and demonstrate a simple mending stitch. The mending stitch is actually a variation on the regular zigzag. Because of this, you use the same foot as your simple zigzag stitch, letter A. Again, this is such a common stitch, the Kenmore 100 stitch has a special pad for it here. It's number 13. Use the same starting procedure for the mending stitch as you did for the zigzag stitch. Just use touch pad 13 instead of 14. To repair a straight tear, position the tear under the needle so that the stitching will catch both sides. If the tear has a corner, use a piece of fabric under the tear to reinforce your mending. Then stitch from each end to the center. The mending stitch is especially useful for sewing patches smoothly and securely, for repairing straight tears, for finishing seams on terry cloth, and it's also great for sewing bar tack for belt loops and drapery pleats. This truly is a celebration for this household. These homemade touches will bring warmth and happiness to this holiday meal. Sewing projects that used to take months of advanced preparation are now done quickly and easily with the Kenmore Electronic 100 stitch. In this section, we'll look at some advanced stitches that you may use for more intricate sewing projects. Even these more ambitious projects become easy when you use the Kenmore 100 stitch. We'll learn the blind hem, a wide variety of decorative stitches, how to make buttonholes automatically, and finally the over edge seam. Making a blind hem used to take a lot of careful, tedious hand sewing to get that professional finished look. With the Kenmore 100 stitch, though, you can accomplish this precision stitch much faster and more precisely than you ever dreamed possible. Begin by finishing the raw edge of your hem. You can use just about any stitch to do this, though many people prefer the over edge stitch, number 15, using the over edge or C foot. Measure, turn up your hem, and pin it. For lightweight fabrics, you may need a double fold. Here's what we want the blind hem stitch to look like. The points barely touch the fold in the material. Now let's go over the checklist of setting up the machine for the blind hem. The thread tension should be at its usual setting, around 4. Use the blind hem or the G foot here. To change to another foot, simply press the red button on the back of the foot holder. Keep in mind the presser foot must be raised up while you're doing this, and then place the presser foot so that the pin on the foot lines up under the groove on the foot holder. Lower the presser foot holder to lock the presser foot in place. Now call up 28 on the panel for a traditional blind hem stitch, which is for woven fabrics. The stretch blind hem stitch is number 16, and you would use it for stretch fabrics because it's stronger and more elastic. Fold the material on the edge to be stitched, leaving a 1/4 inch of the finished hem edge showing. Turn the sliding guide screw so that the sliding guide is very close to the left side of the blind hem foot. Place the fold of the fabric against the sliding guide so that the 1/8 inch extending edge shows on the right. The long zigzag stitch should barely pierce the folded edge of the fabric, but still sew on the 1/4 inch extended edge. After hemming, press both sides of the finished hem. The right side of the garment will show only the blind stitches. The blind hem, what used to be a tedious or professionals only task, is now easy with your Kenmore 100 stitch. One of the best parts of sewing is seeing how creative you can be. With the Kenmore 100 stitch, your clothes, your home, your gifts to others can be uniquely your creation. Here's a sampling of what the Kenmore 100 stitch can do with decorative stitches. You can sew one row or several, or vary the stitch width or the length for special effects. Or try experimenting on a scrap of fabric to see what special effects are possible. Here's a checklist to get you started. Your thread tension should be about 4. Use the satin stitch foot as shown on the stitch pattern chart. That's F. Now call up one of the decorative stitches you see listed on the panel. Let's try the duck, 63. Mark the lines for decoration on the fabric using a washable fabric marker. Then lower the needle at the starting point. Lower the presser foot. Lock the stitch at the beginning by pressing auto lock. Then gently guide the fabric along that marked line. Use the auto lock to secure the row of stitches then at the end. Ta-da! Ducks! And lots of them! Now be even more creative if you wish, because the Kenmore 100 stitch has a computer memory, and you can program it to do a series of decorative stitches. Here's an example. What about alternating the flower with the leaves? Simply enter the pattern ahead of time, touch the first stitch pattern, which is the flower, that's number 39, then touch memory, then touch the next stitch pattern, which is leaves, number 41. Finally, just touch memory. Then when you press the foot control, it makes the combined pattern automatically. If you make a mistake while you're programming a pattern series, just touch clear and it will clear out the last command you just entered. Then simply enter the correct command. The clear only deletes commands one at a time, beginning with the one you just put in. This means you don't have to start from the beginning if you make a mistake. You can mix, match, or modify these decorative patterns and monogram without even changing the stitch foot. Have some fun, be creative. Now you can get that tailor-made look by a touch of a button with your Kenmore 100 Stitch Electronic. Imagine buttonholes just the right length, flat, no puckering, both sides the same, and they take just seconds to make. You can do it with your Kenmore 100 stitch. Your 100 stitch creates 3 different types of buttonholes to meet every sewing need. All 3 buttonholes are made in the same way. Here's how to get you started. This buttonhole foot is a bit different from the other feet. Once you braze the presser foot, you remove both the foot and the foot holder by unscrewing this screw. Open the button holder by pulling it back, like this. Put the button you intend to use into the button holder and then press the back of the holder to lock the button in place. Put on the automatic buttonhole foot by screwing it back on. Draw both threads toward the left under the foot. Put the garment in place. Lower the needle to its lowest position. Lower the presser foot too. Choose from one of 3 styles on the control panel: bar tack, rounded, or keyhole. Then just press your foot control. It's important to keep your foot pressed down until the machine stops by itself. As you can see, it uses both a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch to make each side match. Once the machine stops, you have a perfect buttonhole. To repeat the process, you move to the next buttonhole position, touch the appropriate buttonhole style again on the control pad, and again depress the foot control. Perfect buttonhole number 2. The buttonholes are set for a standard width and stitch density. If you want to vary these settings, simply press the plus or minus on the stitch width to widen or narrow your entire buttonhole. The stitch length button controls the stitch density. Press the plus or minus to adjust the stitch density of the entire buttonhole for fine or coarse stitches. Once you've completed your buttonholes, the only thing left to do is to carefully cut the opening with the buttonhole opener in your accessory box. A tedious, time-consuming job now completed perfectly with a touch of the foot control, thanks to the Kenmore 100 stitch. The overedge stitch is a type of reinforced zigzag stitch. You use it when you want a narrow seam that you don't need to press open flat. It's ideal for quarter-inch seams on knits when you attach ribbing, or on a medium to heavyweight woven fabric when you want a narrow seam. It's also a great seam finish for seams that will be pressed open. The Kenmore 100 stitch gives you the flexibility and precision to accomplish this task. Let's begin by attaching the overedge foot, C. Now set the thread tension at around 4. Select stitch 15 and you're ready to stitch. Place your fabric so that the raw edges touch the black ridge. Then lower the presser foot and gently guide the fabric so that the raw edges always touch that black ridge. If you're sewing over several thicknesses of fabric, raise the presser foot slightly to ease the presser foot over the hump and keep the stitches from bunching up. When you're finished, remove the fabric by drawing it to the back and then out. The stitching will catch on the wire guides if you pull it toward you. A similar stitch to the overedge stitch is the double-edged zigzag stitch. It's used for sewing fabrics that tend to fray extensively, like gabardine or linen. Program the machine for 27 when using the double-edged zigzag stitch. Overedge seams, another hard job made easy with your Kenmore 100 stitch. Now you've caught a glimpse of a world of sewing where hours of repetitious labor are whisked away with a touch of a control, where threading is always simple and there are lots of stitches to choose from. A world where you can sew ambitious projects with confidence. The possibilities are endless. Welcome to the world of the Kenmore 100 stitch electronic sewing machine.